everyone, and welcome to Dank Ferric for a dive into Star Wars lore. Today we'll be opening the doors to the Imperial Star Destroyer, or the ISD. It's perhaps one of the most iconic ships in Star Wars, up there with the Millennium Falcon, the TIE, the X-Wing, and even the Razor Crest. But today we're going to look at certain aspects of the Star Destroyer, such as the duality of why it was so weak but also so intimidating and strong. First, we'll look at the weaknesses, then we'll look at the strengths, and I'm also going to bring out something that I like to call the intimidation factor. So buckle up and get ready, we're jumping to light speed. The Imperial Star Destroyers, bigger, stronger, faster, and lined with cannons. They were deadly and dangerous. Some smugglers would drop their cargo at first sight of one. They could also target a city beneath them and blast it to oblivion. However, on the flip side, the daring pilots of the Rebel Alliance would send a squadron of 4 or 5 fighter crafts to take one of these large vessels on. And the thing is, these rebels would often win. That's if there was one Star Destroyer though, and therein lies the trick. One thing these rebel pilots had to avoid were the cannons on the hull. They were many, and if the pilot wasn't a quick maneuverer, they would be taken down in an instant. But as they weaved between the fire, they had to be quick to take down these behemoths of the Imperial fleet. But their piloting skills were essential here. Between the cannons and the up to 72 TIEs that one could deploy, there was a lot of weaving to do.
What just happened?
If time was on the side of the Rebel squadron, or if they knew what they were doing, the main weaknesses of the Star Destroyer were these two things. For one, it was overall just the design. The bridge was up high, vulnerable if the shields had dropped, and all it took were 1 or 2 well-aimed torpedoes to crash into the deck, or even an intentional kamikaze-like charge, which was pretty rare and unheard of for the most part. I'm not saying it never happened though. The second bit, and perhaps the worst flaw in the otherwise intimidating design, were the placement and locations of the shield generators. You know those standing spheres to the left and right of the bridge or command deck? Well, those are the twin shield generators. Often, firepower would be directed by Y-Wings onto those shield generators, while X-Wings focused on clearing the ground fire and diverted the attention of the TIE pilots. All it took was for those generators to get taken down, and the Star Destroyer would be ripe for destruction.
It'll work. It'll work. I don't know. Fly casual.
Now that we've spoken on the weak points of the ISD, let's really look at the strengths. It's not often what you might think it might be either. Yes, the dozens of TIE fighters that an ISD could carry were a key component here. And even though the basic TIEs had no general defenses outside of their hull plating, they were usually swarming and terrifying when deployed. This was especially when the TIE launches were planned. The other is communications. So yes, let us say a squadron of rebel pilots came upon a lone Star Destroyer above a colony world. They have a choice, these rebel pilots. Do they risk attack? Well, yes, they did have a chance to take out the key points and destroy the vessel. The Empire had a lot of a better chance of sending out a communication or a distress call. This would alert nearby destroyers or reinforcements, and from there, it was only a short matter of time before the rebel ships were closed in upon and destroyed or forced to retreat.
Regional governors now have direct control over their territories. Fear will keep the local systems in line.
One of the biggest factors of the Galactic Empire, and especially their Imperial Navy, was what I like to call the intimidation factor. This comes down to not only their numbers and how they would deploy them, but also the designs of the ships themselves. For example, a lone Star Destroyer looks way more opposing and fearful to a civilian than a hammerhead frigate would. It might make them think twice about approaching. This intimidating factor even comes down to the Imperial fighters and their support vessels. Just look at them. Most civilians didn't even know the technical readouts of a TIE fighter, so they didn't know about the weaknesses, but they did know the Empire would use them harshly and they were designed to spark that. Do I even need to mention the Death Star and how it applies?
Valuable skills. Bring order and unity to the galaxy. Be a part of something. Join the Empire.
This is where I sign up to be a pilot, right?
In the end, it's fear. It's the tool of Palpatine's galactic empire. We know it, we see it, and we feel it. As our good Grand Moff says, well, not so good, fear will keep the local systems in line. And fear did just that, then and now. For a long time, the Imperial Navy worked in that. They were the fear. But when the rebel cells came to emerge over the early years of the Empire, the battle station that is the Death Star renewed that fear for the majority of the galaxy. And when it all comes to a close, the Star Destroyers were strong. They were bold and they were deadly. But like all things, even they had their balances. For all of their might, they had weak points. It is in those weak points that the enemies of the Empire had to gamble on their odds of victory. For the most part though, to the mass of the universe, the Imperial Star Destroyer was a mighty terror to behold. For some, it symbolized the strength of the empires. For others, the tyranny. This has been Dankferric with another Star Wars lore dive. I'm glad to be back on YouTube. I missed you guys and I missed doing this, but now the videos are going to get rolling again. If you want to hear more of these, as well as news and theories all about our favorite galaxy, far, far away, subscribe and hit that bell for more and notifications. Until then, may the Force be with you, friends, always. This is Dankferric, signing off.